So I'll give a bit of an introduction about why we're doing this today. So we're an organisation called Divergent Thinking, and we're created by young people from all over the world who hopefully are smashing it in all their respective sectors. We've got people like myself, who's a specialist in neurodiversity and neuroscience. We've got human rights lawyers based in Iraq helping refugees. We have people who are Forbes 30 under 30 in India supporting with amazing things about creating medication which we can take around the world in rural areas. So we've got a really amazing people that were just passionate about something and wanted to do something good in the world. And hopefully today we're going to be answering the question, is being an entrepreneur right for you? And we're going to be asking some essential questions to hopefully find out if it's for you, awesome, and what's the next steps. And if it's not for you, that's okay also. There's lots of other different roles and journeys you can go on. Amazingly, this was sponsored by the Watson Institute, which is a great social entrepreneur course based in America, but they deliver all around the world, so definitely worth checking out, and also co-funded by Western Union, which we're also very grateful for. Now, this is not the only workshop in the series. There's 5 in total, and the first one today is the Entrepreneur in You, but then every fortnight we've got one such as Empower Your Strengths, which is about how to use what you're good at to turn it into profit. We have Ideation and a Creative Thinking, which is delivered by the CEO of Forbes Ignite and a professor at Pearson's University in the US. And lastly, Pitching and Public Speaking, which is done by a world-renowned Kenyan public speaker who goes around the world and has raised crazy amounts of funds to help different enterprises. So definitely worth checking out, and we will be emailing you more about these as we go on. So a bit about me. I'm Nat, and I co-founded Divergent Thinking mainly because as someone who loves learning but is incredibly dyslexic and find it difficult to navigate the academic world, I wanted to find a way which was approachable and accessible for all types of minds. And through doing different innovative, very interactive means, we thought, why can't we get really complex subjects, turn them into the bare bones, and allow everyone to have access to them, such as being an entrepreneur? It really isn't as scary as it sounds, but I'll let you be the judge of that by the end. And the person I would like to introduce to you the most is Amin, who is our guest speaker today from Malaysia and is an absolute powerhouse of a speaker, has written multiple books, has created loads of businesses, and is also a bit of an influencer on where he's from. But Amin, I'll pass it over to you to give a little bit more of a backstory of who you are.
Nat, quite kind of you to call me a powerhouse. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Aiman from Malaysia. I am a speaker, author, entrepreneur, as you may know. I'm 31 years old. This year, I'm 32. I have 2 kids, married and living in Malaysia, the smallest state in Malaysia. If you can guess, put it up in the chat section, or you can Google it later on. Which is the smallest state in Malaysia? Just a quick quiz for you all. My thing about entrepreneurship, it's about building people. That has been the thing that I've started with, and I've continued doing that, building people, especially young people. And as I grow along in this journey, I figured out there are many, many pockets of issues that I can touch upon, which I will tell you all about it later on. And right now I'm focusing on relationships, and I am on my way to become a counselor, a registered counselor here in Malaysia. And I want to specialize in marriage and relationship. So that's a little bit about me, and I look forward to interact with you as we go along.
So my first question is, what is an entrepreneur?
An entrepreneur, if you ask 10 people, you might have 10 answers. But essentially, entrepreneurs are problem solvers. So we're talking about the entrepreneurs in you, which means that somehow in each of you, there is an entrepreneur living inside there. There's a potential for it. Now, a potential alone is not enough. You need to actualize that potential to make it real, right? So if you are a problem solver, or if you see a problem that you think you can solve, you're halfway there already. But an entrepreneur has something else other than just a problem solver. An entrepreneur is a relentless problem solver. They don't stop. They don't stop. They don't stop at just one problem. Because when you solve one problem, you're going to have another one and another one and another one. It's just nonstop. And for me personally, I've been doing this for about 11 years. It's a series of problems that I enjoy solving. It's tough, it's fun, it's challenging, and it's really something that secret ingredient that makes this lifestyle, you could say, always interesting. It's never boring. I think Nat can relate to this because you have been doing this for a long time, right, Nat? And does it ever get boring doing this?
Let me just. So, I mean, for me, no, being an entrepreneur never gets boring. Every day is different. And for some of you, you're going to absolutely love that. I know I sure do. I need to be kept busy. For others of you, it might be so damn stressful. And it's up to you to find out if that's for you.
Right. It's like a flavor, some people like it, some people don't. If you're kind of person who likes something to be fixed, routine, never changing, probably entrepreneurship is not for you. But if you like it for things to be fluid, right? Things to always changing, like the pandemic, for example, right? It's this global thing that is changing our lives, pretty much forever, because this point will not be the same as it was before the pandemic. And as an entrepreneur, you have to solve this problem, this new problem, and adapt to it. Right? If you enjoy that, if you enjoy, having a new problem to solve, then this is definitely a pathway that you can consider.
One of the answers that I particularly like is an entrepreneur is someone who fixes a problem and makes financial gains of it by creating a business and taking all the risks in hope of profit. And I think this is a really important part because an entrepreneur isn't a charity, and nor does it need to be. I often think there's this kind of thing where if you want to do good in the world, you also have to take a financial hit yourself. And I'm very passionate about doing good in the world while also doing financially good for yourself. So that is also what we're going to be looking at today. How can you make a difference, but also make sure you have a good quality of life?
Right. Try not to stigmatize profit. I think when people hear the word profit, there's this thing that we might feel a bit iffy about. Ooh, profit. I don't feel good about profiting. There is two types of profit. One where you take advantage of people. Obviously, we're not recommending that. But there is such a thing as responsible profiting, where you are making what you rightfully should earn from your labor, right? It's like a teacher, for example, is doing great work being a teacher. That doesn't mean a teacher has to be free, right? We should pay teacher in a way that they deserve to be paid. Because if you want something to be sustainable, you want teacher to keep on teaching, you got to give them a salary, a wage that will be reasonable for them to keep on doing what they're doing, to keep on doing what they do best. So we are operating on the same principle there as an entrepreneur. So just because you are making a profit, it doesn't mean that you're doing something evil, as long as you keep an eye on your moral compass and doing the right thing all the time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's I always used to feel really dirty about like accepting money for something which I thought was needed in society. But ultimately, if you can't value your own time, how can other people? That does not mean that the user has to be the one that pays, but someone has to, and that's something we're going to be looking into in a bit more detail.
Right, preach, brother.
We're going to just quickly move things along to who are entrepreneurs? What are the type of people? And I want you to just look at this little list of 4 people and just click on the ones that you are most familiar with when it comes to being an entrepreneur.
That's quick.
I'm not surprised that the majority of you so far has put Steve Jobs. And when we think of an entrepreneur, we think of some like white, pale man who has been able to do really well. And yeah, that is true. But that doesn't mean that that is all an entrepreneur can be. Beyonce has a massive empire. Rihanna is one of the richest female self made millionaires of all time. Oprah Winfrey started from the bottom, worked to the top. These are all entrepreneurs, even though they're not the first person that comes to mind when you think of it.
Right. Right, right. The thing about entrepreneurs is that probably for many of us, because when you see Steve Jobs just goes up immediately, maybe in our minds we have this image of what an entrepreneur looks like, you know, how he or she looks like, where in fact you just have to think of an entrepreneur not as an image, but more of an attitude or a lifestyle. It's not how you look that makes you an entrepreneur. It doesn't mean that you gotta have the Lamborghini beside you for you to become an entrepreneur or look like an entrepreneur. It's about whether you solve real problems in the society or not, and whether you are sustainable or not, and whether yes you are profitable or not. So it's more about your attitude, your work ethic, your lifestyle that really defines you as an entrepreneur or otherwise. It's not how you look really. So I hope that we can, kind of erase that bit in our minds a little bit after tonight. That's my hope. So that when you think of entrepreneur, you don't think of an image, you think of an attitude, you think of work ethic, and you think of lifestyle. That's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of looking at it. I always think, what do these people all have in common? Because they're all very different. They're all passionate, they're all driven, and they're all a bit restless. These people are always
Right.
striving to the next level. But there's a few things that I always think, what other things do they have in common? So I want you to look at this list of just 3 questions and ask yourself, how strongly do you agree or disagree? And it will give you a sense of whether or not being an entrepreneur is for you. So left if you strongly disagree, or right if you strongly agree. The first one is, I like solving problems. Are you a problem solver? Do you like it when things kind of go off path? Are you motivated? Can you get up each day? Are you okay with doing things even if you don't always like to do them? And are you okay at taking risks? So, for instance, if it all goes bad, are you okay with that if that is an option?
It doesn't mean that you always have to have solutions. Sometimes you failed. Um, Actually, a lot of times you may fail. But the thing about entrepreneur is, like I said, they are relentless problem solvers. When one problem comes, another one comes right after that, and they just keep on solving those problems. And if you enjoy a type of problem that you can solve with the skills that you have, the knowledge that you have, even if sometimes you fail to solve that problem, it wouldn't stop you. It will still keep you going. You may feel bad about it, you may feel down, a day or two, but you find a way to get back up and continue. Like, for example, we talk about Oprah Winfrey, right? I mean, she was fired from a news company, right? So talk about a setback. And for somebody who is a TV icon, you wouldn't imagine that this person was fired from a TV company. But that happens to a lot of people who ended up being successful, is that along the way, they experience failures that is hurtful and painful. And later on, when they prove those people wrong, the failures that were before became not something that you are shy about. It's something that you tell people about, just to show them that just because you fail at something doesn't mean that that should stop you from keep on going. And that's the thing about the entrepreneurial attitude. Like I said, it's that attitude, it's that relentless attitude that you always want to keep going, even though the things seem like it's all crumbling down. It doesn't mean, therefore, that you take stupid risk, right? You're okay with taking risk, but not stupid risk. Hopefully, you don't jump off the building or things like that without a parachute, right? It's not about that. It's about intelligent risk, calculated risk, even. And that's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I like that a lot because risk is normally the thing which I see as the lowest scoring here. We're all scared of
Yeah,
that or
right.
taking risk, but it's about being smart about it. Have you thought about it? If, for instance, you do something and it doesn't work out, do you have enough money to survive? Are you going to be okay? Can you deal with the anxiety? And today, we're not about trying to convince you to become entrepreneurs or discourage you. It's just about giving you the facts and letting you choose. But
Can I tell
judging,
you about the risk that I took?
yeah, please do.
So yeah, so like I said, I'm a speaker, right? And I've spoken to thousands of people, sometimes at one event, thousands of people in the audience. And you may see that as, wow, this person has it made, right? Being up there with a microphone, talking to thousands of people. But let me tell you, along the way, earlier in my journey, when I wanted to establish myself as a speaker, I did this road tours, right? Where I go to different cities in Malaysia, talking about how to build your confidence, right? And there was this one city in particular where the signups weren't that great, right? And if you think of it from the standpoint of profit at that time, I was losing money. And I think the safest thing to do at that point was to cancel the event altogether and cut your losses, right? And financially, that's an intelligent thing to do, but it didn't feel right with me, with my entrepreneurial attitude, because I'm here to solve a problem. These people sign up for me to help them solve this problem. So I had I had four people showed up.
Nice.
Four people showed up in this physical location, face to face, having this. I think it was a 4-hour workshop or something like that. It was probably the longest 4 hours of my life. But after that, at the end of the day, I felt good about it, thinking that even though it wasn't the most financially intelligent thing to do, but I slept well that night. So it was a risk that I took. I failed financially, to be honest with you, but it's something that I can sleep well at night thinking about. So sometimes being an entrepreneur, you have to take the hit. Sometimes, not all the time, of course, but sometimes you have to take the hit for something you believe in. It may not make sense to people around you. People might say you're stupid for doing that. But for those four people that I interacted with that day, to them, it wasn't stupid. I helped them, right? So that is another thing that you kind of have to think about. Again, I'm not talking about this happening all the time, not all the time, right? But there are, pockets of experiences here and there where these kind of things happen. But even though, you kind of take a hit from it, but again, at the end of the day, you kind of feel good that you took the hit, because sometimes you kind of have to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. When I first started, it took me 6 months to make my first sale, and I was supporting people for free and hoping that the money would come in. By the end of the 6 months, I was so close to quitting because it was so difficult, and eventually it happened, and now I get business without even having to try. But it's about staying strong, weathering the storm, and understanding that it's going to be, you're not going to make a profit to begin with, but you can still make an impact. But like you mentioned, that this isn't something you should get used to. It's a curve, but a curve that hopefully will not last.
Like a rites of passage, even, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like we said about here, we're not all going to be great at everything. And I think what we have this image of an entrepreneur as a lone wolf, someone who can do it all on their own, but it's
Mm-mm.
really not the case. On here, all I want you to do is rate your skills. Like if you're amazing at talking, go to a 5. If you're really bad at being creative, go to a 1. Because I think it's really important to know what your strengths are, but also what your weaknesses are.
Right.
So Amin, what would you say is your biggest strength and weakness?
I'm looking. Well, biggest strength would be talking. I mean, I make a living out of it, obviously. So that's my biggest strength. I would say my weakness is making decisions. I know it's kind of weird being an entrepreneur for 11 years and you have problems making decisions, but sometimes, you have that Achilles heel that's always with you. But I've gotten better at it over time, of course, but I have to tell you, making decisions is tough, man, especially those decisions that can affect other people, right? Other people's bottom line, even. That's really a tough decision to make, but it's just part of the deal, part of the whole package of being an entrepreneur. You're gonna have to learn how to make decisions. So I think the takeaway message here is that let's say you're weak at something. It doesn't mean therefore you just abandon that thing because you're just weak at it. It could mean that you identify your weakness and you just work on it. Over time, you're not going to be as bad as you were before. And yes, you can also outsource those things, try to get help whenever you can. Like you said, Nat, entrepreneurship is not like a lone wolf kind of a situation. You're gonna need help. Even if you're a what people call a solopreneur, there's a term called solopreneur where you are a company of one, which by the way, I am that kind of line of thinking, but it doesn't mean you don't need people. Even though I am a company of one, it doesn't mean that I don't need help once in a while with accounting, with marketing, with, advice here and there, making decisions even. So even though, yeah, I'm good at talking, but I'm bad at making decisions, man. What about you, Nat? What about you?
I think the same. Like, for instance, because I mentioned I'm dyslexic, I'm really bad at like writing and
Oh,
reading
yeah.
and report writing. And for a lot of time, you think, well, you can't possibly be an entrepreneur. But I realize I'm good at having a vision, and I'm good at hopefully making friends and getting the right type of people together. I know that I don't have to be amazing at everything, but as long as I can inspire the same dream in other people, then we've got something to work on.
I think I,
Um,
I can
yeah.
testify to that, Nat. When we met 4 years ago at this camp, you do have that skill of making friends. You're one of those people who like shines among the crowd as being friendly. So I can attest to that. That's one of your strengths, definitely.
And yeah, now, because like I said, I'm the co founder of Divergent Thinking, my partner does all the writing, all the bid creating. I was great on my own. I was still doing workshops, but I was only doing them like just me. Now we
Right.
have facilitators all around the world, and we're able
That's
to do
amazing.
that because I have other people supporting and backing up. So just the main point is that all these skills are required, whether you have them yourself or you have one in a high spans, you can still be an entrepreneur. You might just have to think about who else could you partner with. Now, on this section, this is about understanding how you learn
Hmm.
because we mentioned about you're going to need these skills. Well, the question is say you're dyslexic, say you're shy, introverted. How can you gain these skills if you're past the age of education? For me, I think it's always important to understand how you learn. So on here,
Right.
write, do you learn by watching? Could be like TV, listening, reading, or by physically using your hands. So I'm going to pass the
Wow.
question back to you.
Watching.
How do you think you learn best?
Let's see. Let's see. I do read, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm a bad reader. I'm a bad reader. Put me with a book for 5 minutes, I'm gonna fall asleep. But I do try to read though. I still have books in my house. I love books. I love exploring the contents of books. But I wouldn't call that the way I learn best. I would say probably listening and watching would be my top two. Listening will be the first because I can listen while doing something. I'm good at that. I just realized that not everybody can do that. I know my wife is not like that. She can't listen and then do something else. She has to like focus on what she's listening on. But I can passively listen to something and then grasp what's being said while doing something. So I like listening to like podcasts while I'm driving, listening to a YouTube video while I'm, cleaning the house, or while I'm writing something. I like to listen to another thing on Audible, an audiobook, for example. So definitely, I learn best by listening and watching. But the thing about that is it doesn't mean therefore there's something lacking about you if you are a bad reader, for example. It's just knowing how you learn best. And the point here is that you learn. That's the
Yeah.
point. The way you learn really depends on the individual, right? But the point is you learn. You learn the things, the knowledge, the skills that you need to learn in order for you to solve a specific problem. Speaking of entrepreneurs as a problem solver. So that's the whole point. It doesn't mean that, oh, that person can read 10 books in a week. I can only read one book in a year. It doesn't mean that there's something lacking about you. It just means that perhaps you kind of have to hack your way to learn the same thing, but in a different way, a way that's gonna work for you. Like Nat, I know you as somebody who's dyslexic, probably reading is not for you. You can definitely benefit from other stuff, like maybe Skillshare. You can watch and listen as you learn something. So it's really about knowing how you learn. It's not about like comparing, oh, that person learned that way, I should follow that person. No, you just follow whatever that feels closest to you and most natural to you, because as entrepreneurs, you're gonna have to be learners. You can't be entrepreneur and not learn anything. And that doesn't mean you have to always be with the book. Sometimes you always have to be listening to podcasts, watching the news, or interacting with people, talking to people. That's another way that you learn things. So knowledge and skills that you need for whatever entrepreneurship that you're doing really depends on how you tap into the method that works for you. Maybe reading, maybe listening, maybe watching, using hands, or maybe other than these four things that's listed on here. So really find what works best for you.
I couldn't have put it better myself, to be honest. It's knowing that as an entrepreneur, you have to be passionate about learning, but how you learn is up to you. You do not need a degree to get into business. I'll repeat that. You do not need a degree in order to get into business. You just have to know how to find the information. At the moment, no lie, despite being heavily dyslexic, I'm reading War and Peace, which is like the biggest book ever.
Holy.
Yeah, and that's because I found a way that works for me. So I have the audiobook playing while I'm reading, and it helps kick me up the bum. So there's always ways of getting around it. You might not need
That's
to read
cool.
every business book in the world, but find a way that you can still get that information. Maybe like today, even. Now, this question is to find out what you're passionate about. If you want to be successful in business, we've talked about how bloody difficult it is. We've talked about how you are going to fail, you're going to lose money, it's going to be tough. The only way you're going to survive is if you're passionate about it, if it's something you wholeheartedly agree on. So what I want you to do on this is put a little pin on whatever thing you're most passionate about. Hopefully not gambling. Obviously, this is a very small section. If there's things that aren't on here, feel free to write in the chat.
What would be my passion on here?
I don't know if mine's on here, but mine is probably storytelling. I think that's what I'm most passionate about.
Right. I mean, for me, I like psychology. That's what I learned in university, by choice, right? And once I learned that, I can't look back. I can't think of anything else that I want to spend my time learning. I mean, it's fascinating learning about people, and that's partly why I'm doing my entrepreneurship is about relationship, marriage, and family. It's probably that, for that reason, because I love psychology so much. The moment I entered, I remember that first psychology class, by the way, by accident, not by design. So I stumbled upon it one day, and then I walked into that class, and that psychology 101 class really changed my life by introducing me to this thing that I knew I was passionate about, but it got ignited or really activated at that point when the professor talks about the human behavior, abnormality, and the things that you can do to maintain a healthy life and things like that. Really helps out in paving my way. So sometimes this thing that you're passionate about is like my story. You stumbled upon it, or it's a series of events that lead you to it. It's not necessarily something that you're gonna have to figure out in your bedroom right now, but what I would say to you is go out and try new things, interact with new people, and maybe that thing that you are most afraid of doing, try that, and see where that leads you, because one event, it leads to another event and another event and another event, and pretty soon you're right here. right, with us in this webinar. So it's really about creating that moments where opportunities start to appear to you. It's not about just sitting in your room and try to figure out what's my passion. Just go out and try stuff, and pretty soon you start to figure things out, or you can start to narrow things down into the things that you're actually care about. And when you talk about entrepreneurs being problem solvers, remember what I said? You enjoy solving that problem, and that's why when you fail, you don't be demotivated by that failure. You becomes you kind of like, it's a weird thing, right, Nat? When you fail at something that you enjoy doing, you kind of feel more motivated to do it even more. It's like, how would I put it in an example? Oh, it's like playing a game. Let's say you have an Xbox, you're playing a game, or whatever you game that you prefer. If you fail at a certain level, you don't immediately quit the game. If you enjoy the game, you just repeat the same level, but you try a different strategy. You just want to beat that level to get to the next level and the next level and the next level. That's kind of like what the entrepreneurship lifestyle is like. It's like always trying to go to the next level by beating the level that you're on right now. So if you want to figure that out, I say just go out and try stuff. Go out and try stuff, and you'll be surprised what you figure out.
And if you are struggling with thinking what you're passionate about, because let's face it, that is a really difficult question. Another way
Right.
of
Yeah.
looking at it is asking yourself what annoys you. Oh, well, I'll cut to that bit in a second. It's like always thinking what bothers you in society, and you'll normally find you can be passionate, like, you know, oh, I really hate politics. Well, or are you passionate about creating a fairer world? So just thinking how you can like reword things.
Nice.
The next bit we're going to talk about is building a team. And like I said, this isn't for everyone. I know, like Emma, you said this isn't really for you, but you still collaborate with people and you're still going to
Correct.
ask for help. And
Yes.
building a
Yes.
team is the best thing you can possibly do, but also the most challenging. And we're going to run through a few tips. So I want to ask you, say if you were building a team today, who would you get involved? Would you ask your friend, like, hey, Jimmy, I need you to come and help me out? Or, Mum, hope you're free tonight. Or would you get new people?
Hey, mom, social media marketing. You know anything about that?
And
Wow.
I mean, do you have any experience with like either working with friends or family?
Well, I've friends and family. If I had the choice, and I do have the choice, I would hire new people, not just people from my circle of friends, especially with certain things that are probably a bit complicated if you involve friends in it. So I would hire new people. And I've done that in the past, and I've done that with my other business ventures. Nat, you probably don't know this, but I run a kindergarten and a
Ooh,
daycare
nice.
here, just because I have two kids and I want them to be in the best place possible, and I can't find, this is just my pet peeve, I can't find a kindergarten where my kid can just play. You know what I mean? I just want a place where they can play around and be a child. But a lot of these kindergartens nowadays, I don't know about the UK, but a lot of the kindergartens nowadays are very focused on academics. Want the kid to read fast, write fast, and do math quickly by the age of 3. I'm like, chill, let kids be kids. So because I saw that problem, right, that real world problem that's close to me, I start to think, how can I solve this problem? I try to collaborate. I try to see if there are other people who have created a kindergarten with that in mind, but I couldn't find any at my area. Like I said, I live in the smallest state in Malaysia. In probably, if you're in UK, you can probably think of it as somewhere rural, not like London city, somewhere rural. That's where I live in Malaysia. So we don't have that kind of kindergarten here. So I tried for a year to to delay like opening a kindergarten, because that's a very financially heavy thing to do. But after a year, I can't find any other solution than to open my own. So I did that. So obviously I need a team, right? I need a team. But because, like I said, I'm more comfortable working, as a company of one, what I did was, in the beginning, yes, I tried to manage the team as best as I could, to learn that along the way. But I hire people who can manage the team for me. So I don't have to manage the team. I just interact or communicate with that one person, and that's more doable for me. So it doesn't mean, therefore, when you say that, oh, you need a team, it doesn't mean that you are the one managing the team, because I know for a lot of people, myself included, we're not good team managers. We don't like to manage the team. We don't like to micromanage people. So hire somebody else who can do it for you.
Yep.
And I've done that, and it works well. So yeah, that's
Nice.
my story.
Well, I learned something new today as well. And what I would say is, if you do end up working with friends or family, be transparent, get everything in writing. Whatever you agree upon, write it down,
Right.
because things can get messy. So it's better to know at the start of the game how much you're going to get paid, how long it's for, what you expect of them. Transparency is key.
Definitely. That's an important point. Yeah.
So we've spoken about it can be difficult. We've spoke about the type of skills you need, about doing what you're passionate about. But now it comes down to coming up with an idea. And
Hmm.
I think you, to be honest, you've just like still your kindergarten, or well, what we'd call nursery school in the UK. It's about you saw a problem and then you thought about how you could solve it.
Yeah.
And one of the questions I like to ask is, what will we have in the future that we don't have now? So in your example, there was nowhere to put your kids where you lived. So that is something you wanted. Now have a
Right.
think, is there anything that you think we need but we do not have? It could be a flying car. It could be bringing dinosaurs back. It could be something really small. Nanotech. Yeah.
Wow.
For me, I would love it to have real-time translators. I know they kind of exist, but not really well, where
Oh,
you can speak with all your
interesting.
people who speak different languages in real time. Because with my
Cool.
dyslexia, I am never going to learn a language. I have tried so hard; it goes in one side, out the other.
Which language have you tried, Nat? Which language
All
have
of
you
them.
tried?
So I learned Spanish. I
Oh,
learned I learned Spanish and forgot it. I knew French for a bit, forgot it. Tried Portuguese. I even learnt Mandarin for a bit. And when I say learn, I was in those countries for like 3 or 4 months to learn.
oh, wow.
So for me, again,
Wow.
what we said, it doesn't matter. I might not be able to learn that way, but if I can find another way around it to reach the same goal, which is
True.
communication, that's all
Right.
that matters.
And if I may add, you don't have to, like Nat has a very personal example, right? Because he had that problem. So he thought of a way to solve it that could be in the future. So you don't have to think too big. I mean, there's a saying where you think globally, but you act locally,
Mm.
meaning try to think around you right now, wherever that you live. Like we have somebody from Lebanon, we have somebody from Romania, Malaysia, Singapore, wherever that you live right now, that small town that you live right now, just look around and what is something that you think should be there, but it's not there now. Like for me, in my small place here in Malaysia, where I'm at, there's no like proper play school for my child. There's no proper play school for my child. But there should be. And I thought I was the only one who think that way, but you're never the only one who think that way, really. And once I opened that kindergarten, I see throves of parents coming to me and say, thank you for opening this kindergarten, man. It really helps out. I need it for my child, for my son, for my daughter. You start to realize that people think of these ideas. Probably the idea that you have, somebody is thinking that thing, but not everybody is acting upon it. And the
Mm.
thing about entrepreneurs is that it's not just they think of these great business ideas. I mean, if you have Thanksgiving dinner, or you have like here in Malaysia we have Hari Raya, where we have family gatherings, you're going to hear about uncles and aunties talking about the ideas all the time, but how many are actually doing it,
Mm.
actually putting in the work to make it real? So have the idea, yes, but think, how can you make it real? Right? How can you make it real?
And this brings me to the point I just mentioned about, if you aren't sure about what to do in the future, think about what to do right now.
Ah,
So,
this
and
is a
Matt,
good question.
like, okay, I really hate the fact there's some of you mentioned about racial injustice. Well, could you do a campaign about it? Maybe the roads are too busy and people are like hurting themselves. What about creating different signs or different speed bumps? Or the environment is doomed. What can we
Mm.
do? So I always think, what really gets your blood boiling? Um, for me, it's probably like congestion in London. If any of you've ever been, it is horrible. So I always think, what can I do to make sure people can still have the same opportunities without having to travel to that hellhole? And this was one of the options. And I haven't just hopefully benefited people in London, now it's helped worldwide. So sometimes by solving a problem, you're not just solving that problem, but you're also fixing something you didn't even realize that needed fixing at the beginning.
And sometimes that thing that annoys you is that small thing that it's kind of like hovering above your head, that small thing. Like, for example, I remember when I was in university, the thing that annoys me is even today, it annoys me. It's when, in class, the teacher asks a question and nobody says anything. Somehow that annoys me. Somehow it kind of makes me feel bad for the teacher. So I'm probably one of those students who don't like when the classroom is silent. I always have to be that person who like say something, or at least say no question, thank you, or something. Not like that silent after a teacher says, "Do you have any question?" So that might be a small thing, but that small thing, if you think about it deep enough, you may find an opportunity or a problem that you can solve and make a business out of it. For example, that particular example that I just gave you is actually the initial point for the confident workshop that I did. You remember the one where the 4 people showed up? Yeah. That was the beginning point where I was annoyed with people, students, not being confident enough to just say, no question, thank you. But they just keep silent and just hoping for the teacher to just, move on to the next one. And I can't sit with that. So I took it as an opportunity. So I make a living doing that for quite a while, talking about how to build your confidence. And I know, Nat, in one of your entrepreneurship programs, there's one about becoming confident.
Hmm.
That's totally it, man. If you can tap into that part of yourself and really, really build that, I mean, you can go far in life. Really, you can go far in life. So yeah, that could be something small that starts as something small, but if you think about it, why aren't people talk in class when teacher asks a question? Maybe they're afraid, maybe they're anxious, maybe they're not confident enough. So you start to think and you start to find problems that you can solve and maybe create an entrepreneurship activity out of it.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I remember when we were talking before this started, I was speaking about how I delivered filmmaking sessions, and it wasn't because I was passionate about filmmaking, I was passionate about getting young people to tell their stories from their point of view. So I was always
Right.
angry that I'd watch things on TV talking on behalf of someone and the individual wouldn't get a say. So I thought,
Ah,
teach
right.
them to be able to tell their own story. And that's how that idea came about because I was annoyed. I'm going to skip that
Right.
one there, but I just want to quickly focus on this point that whatever you create, you've always got to ask yourself, would you pay your own money for it? Because if you
Mm,
wouldn't give your own hard earned cash, then how can you expect anyone else to? This basically
right.
means that you've got to believe in it yourself.
Right. Don't This is where, when we talk about profit, responsible profit versus, taking advantage of people, one of the ways that you can kind of figure that out, if you ask yourself, would I buy it myself? Because if it's really a good product, then why don't you buy it? There
Yeah.
must be something that caused you to not buy it yourself. So that's one thing that you kind of like tap
And
into to really
do
figure out.
research. Like, rather than just asking yourself, would you buy it? The next step is doing research, speak to
Yeah.
people, find out if there's a market. You do not want to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on flying drones to deliver Amazon packages just to find out that the government isn't going to let that happen. Make sure that you research first. Like with your like nursery or like daycare center, if you found out that people just didn't have that disposable income, or for whatever reason, then it wouldn't have been financially viable. You had to speak
Correct.
to people first to make sure there was an actual demand for it.
Yes, yes. And I did that. I did look around. Yeah. So definitely do your research.
And part of doing your research comes to knowing your audience. So I don't know, some of you mentioned, like, let's say you want to make a toy. Ask yourself, who's going to buy that toy? You might say
Hmm.
a child, but really it's going to be the adult because they're the ones with the money. Or on my side, like I deliver courses for young people, and I think, okay, who will buy my product? Well, it's not the children, it's not the teenagers, it's going to be local authorities, it's going to be youth organisations. So you've always got to think about not who it's aimed at, but who's paying.
Right, correct. And for me in particular, for many, many years in the beginning, I deal with students, right? Talking about confidence, building confidence, speaking English. So thinking of students, university students, obviously they have the money, but they don't have that much of a money. So you kind of have to think, how can you still make a profit responsibly, but still catering to this group of people who are not that well off? And you kind of have to figure that out.
Now, I know we're getting near on time now, so I want to just focus on something which I think is quite important. Is you've got your business, you're passionate about it, you're ready to go, you need to think about registering and finances. This is the most boring part, but also super,
Oof.
super important. Um,
Yes.
I hated it. So there's a few different options you can do. Now, it's different for each country, but basically, you've got your for profit. So, are you part of the capitalist system? Are you making money? Or are you a charity, which means you do not make profit, but your goal is just to keep it sustainable through grants and helping people? There really isn't a right or wrong answer, but understanding one of these is going to help you define how your business grows and like your revenue streams.
Right. And the thing about these two categories in particular, it's not like one is correct and the other one is wrong. It's not about right or wrong. Like I said, just because it's for profit, it doesn't mean it's for evil, right?
Yeah.
You can you can make a profit responsibly, ethically. Think of the example of the teacher that I told you about. They're doing great work, but it doesn't mean that they have to do it for charity or for free. They can if they want to. They'll be great, but for the majority of teachers, they should be paid a good wage, right? Because they want to keep it sustainable. So for-profit businesses, think about how you want to make it sustainable so that you can keep on solving the problems that you are aimed to solving, right? Because if you think, I can't do it for money, I have to do it for free, but then you can only last for 3 years, then that will actually stop you from continuing to solve the problems that you aim to solve. So think not in terms of, I'm going to be mad, rich, making it rain, man. Not thinking in that sense, but thinking in the sense of, I want to continue solving this problem that I so enjoy solving and keep on helping people. And that will really kind of like gauge you into thinking about how to profit ethically, not taking advantage of people.
And there is that middle category, which is more of an unofficial term, but social entrepreneur. And that is just
Right.
someone who is operating for profit, but then will choose to put that money back into the community. So you do not have to be a charity in order to do good in the world. And in different countries, there's different things. Like in the UK, there's this thing called a CIC, which is a community interest corporation. Or in the
Right.
US, I think it's called a B Corp. And there are different kind of options, but try and think about this early on because it will shape different pockets of funding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me quickly go on to the last section, actually, which I think is the most useful, is about reputation. Because you could be that have the best heart in the world, but if people do not believe in you, no one
Right.
is going to give you money, no one's going to buy your product, no one's going to accept your help. And reputation is important. So, how would you actually make sure people believe in you enough so people take you as a credible thing, particularly if you're young? Look at me, I look like I'm 12. How do anyone take me serious? Not easy, but let's talk about how we can do that.
Reputation is definitely that thing that we talk about a lot, but not many of us have when it comes to good reputation even. And right now with social media and stuff, you can have bad reputation easily. I mean, you can go viral, stupidly viral very easily just by doing stupid things, right? That's a kind of reputation where people know you, right? From all over the world even, but that's not the kind of reputation you want. So really, for entrepreneurs, problem solvers, the reputation that you want to build is that of trust. You want people to trust you. And trust is that thing that, you know, it's easy to say but hard to do. It's not something that you can just ask people, hey, trust me. It's something you have to kind of have to earn. And when you think of earning trust, a few things come to mind. Number one, it takes time. So I'm not the camp who says that, oh, I'm gonna be a millionaire in a year. No, I'm not that camp. I like slow growth. I like to take my time. Like I said, I've been doing this for 11 years, still going. I'm not like mad rich, but I'm richer than I was before, definitely. Yeah. So I've seen, you know, businessmen, businesswomen who got rich quickly, but then they died off as quickly as they get rich quickly as well, because they don't build that rapport with the people that you're trying to help. There's no relationship there. It's just this transactional thing where money comes in, money comes out. But when you think about building relationship, that's number two, building relationship. Number one, it takes time. Number two, building relationship. That is a thing that you kind of have to focus on when you talk about the people that you're trying to help, because that relationship, when things go south, really will last, and they can help you out when you need help. Like the pandemic, for example, how many business that you know of where they have to close shop, but because they have helped people a lot, the community around them help this business to stay open. That happens because why? This business is thinking about building trust and relationship. So if you want to build a reputation for yourself, good reputation, you're gonna have to take time to build that relationship with each and every individual that you're trying to help. Like the example that I gave with the 4 people that attended my workshop, I didn't want to cancel on them because they have spent the money and they have, you know, dedicated their time to want to attend the workshop. So I want to honor that. So that's relationship I'm trying to build with these 4 people. And that can actually expand. These 4 people is going to talk about you in the nicest way. And that will further expand your reputation. So take your time and build relationships. That's the way you want to build a reputation in life. And another way to think is, if you die, not if, when you die, how do you want people to remember you? I mean, I think about that all the time, especially when you have kids. You know, I want my kids to think of their dad in a certain way. That will also help you out in, you know, fine tuning your business.
Nice. I like that a lot, to be honest. And your example of how even a few people turned up, but you did it anyway, it proves you're reliable, it's dedicated, it shows it's not just about the money. And I think the other thing is you do not have to be the perfect person, but know what is your brand, what do you want to be known as. You know,
Right.
if you Google my name, I am known as the neurodiversity expert. You know, people know that I know stuff about that. I can still be a right party animal when I'm not at work, but I make sure that I am seen as the go-to person. And so always ask you, who do you want to be? What is the go-to thing someone would go to you for?
Right.
So my last tips is dream big, but start small. You know, yes, you want to take down the man and kind of reduce global warming, but how can we start off small? The next thing is keep your day job, because, you know, build it over time. You know, make sure you get that foundation, keep it
Yes.
strong. You cannot help
Yes.
the world if you can't help yourself first.
Mm.
Um,
Correct.
Break down the big goals into manageable chunks. It can be overwhelming. So I have been building my business a little bit each day. I will have like only like one thing to do each day, and eventually change does happen. And focus on your strengths and outsource the rest. You do not have to be Superman in order to create a super company.
In Malay, well, I'm a Malaysian. We have this saying that we say "sikit-sikit lama-lama jadi bukit," which essentially translate to, you know, you have small pebbles that you just put in a pile little by little, and that pile becomes a hill or a mountain over time. So that's kind of the idea that I try to strive on, because I don't like to, like I said, I don't like to, build my business quickly. Everything is about rushing, meeting the KPI. I don't like that. I like taking my time, building relationships, building trust. And over time, you start to see that hill, that mountain is starting to take shape. It starts with a small pebble that you just put in a pile, little by little, one by one by one. And yeah, like I like your keep your day job tip, because I tell that to people as well, especially people who hate their job. And I ask them, what's your plan? They say, I don't know. So I say, keep your day job, man. You need to pay the bills, right? Especially if you have family, kids, keep your day job, but start something on the side, because you're not going to work 24 hours in a day, right? In Malaysia, full-time job is an 8-hour day thing. So you work for 8 hours, you probably hate it, but it's going to pay the bills. So keep on working that. But then beyond that 8 hours, you probably have 2 hours a night. You focus on those 2 hours to build whatever that you want to build. I've known business people here in Malaysia who've done that. They do their 9 to 5, 8-hour day job, and then at night they build their business. And over time, what happens is that the business on the side that they're building start to make profits that can rival or exceed the salary that they're taking from their day job. So once that happens, feel free to quit your job. Once that happens, once you have a stable enough platform to stand on, you can forego that job that you hate. So it's not about being this over the top, overzealous kind of people to become an entrepreneur. You have to also be practical and think about how can you achieve that big dream, but in the most realistic, safe, risky, yes, but calculated risk, intelligent risk.
Okay, that's
Are
really
people
great.
doodling?
Yeah, I was just thinking my thing's getting vandalized. I guess that's a sign of you've gone over time. But
right.
So
Okay.
what I would say
Loud
is
and clear.
no, those are great tips and absolutely invaluable. What I would say is if you have more questions, feel free to message us. But just to give you the heads up that in 2 weeks' time, so like every fortnight, we're going to be delivering a new talk. And the next one is about empowering your strengths. So this is all about how do you actually get good at something? How do you find out what you're already good at and turn it into profit? Because I think this is something which can be really difficult and well worth it. But this one is going to be great. But we also have others that are coming up. So like to mention, the building confidence one is going to be crucial, particularly if you're going to bid for funding, go to business meetings,
Right.
talk about your idea passionately. The ideation and creative thinking is all about coming up with ideas, fixing problems. And this is honestly going to be amazing. That's delivered by someone who is a CEO at Forbes Ignite. And the pitching and public speaking, honestly, you're going to need some money first. So what I did is I got funding first and then I made it was sustainable. So you kind of act almost like a charity at the beginning where you're asking for money, and then you make it sustainable where you can keep on going and you aren't reliant on anyone else. So these are all the sessions that are coming up.
Cool,
And
man. Cool.
a few questions I see, where can we go to watch this? It's going to be on YouTube, hopefully by the end of the day, because I'll edit out all the less interesting bits, which there aren't any.
The vandalizing.
Yeah, well, I'll edit out the
out.
vandalizing. And one quick question: how do you get a good mentor? Whoever you want. I remember one of the mentors I got was someone I really admire, and I just emailed him without the harassing-ness. Actually, we won't go to bonus quiz, but I'll end it on that. But I just want to say a massive thank you for all of you for attending, and I mean for you for being our regional expert, well, global expert.
It's my pleasure, Nat, and it's a pleasure to see an old friend. I mean, we met 4 years ago, and then the pandemic hits, and then we can see each other again online. So I'm glad to meet an old friend, and also to be with you guys. You guys are a fun bunch to be with, and really thank you for the opportunity. I am honored, and I enjoy my 1 hour with you.